Welcome to the UK news on October 2nd in 2021. And we start with something called Brexit Benefits. The British government wants to relax the rules for growing genetically modified plants in England. This is a tool that could help us address some of the biggest challenges we face, such as food security, climate change, and the loss of ecological diversity, said Agriculture Minister George Eustice on Wednesday. Outside the EU, the UK is now able to drive innovation in this area. According to the new rules, no complex license processes are necessary for tests for research purposes, but only information to the responsible ministry. The easing initially only applies to England. The aim is to grow plants such as sugar beet that are more nutritious and more disease resistant. The British government wants to enact simplified rules for minor genetic changes within a plant species, while genetic manipulations that involve several species should initially remain more strictly regulated. In the EU, strict rules apply to both. Well, I'm more for the EU part, as obviously. Critics see more risks than opportunities in the genetic modification of plants. Several organizations criticized the UK government for largely ignoring a consultation process. And then there's something I call travel changes. The Welsh government has confirmed it will merge the green and amber travel lists into one and remove the requirement for pre-departure testing for those fully vaccinated. The changes are intended to be made by October 4th in alignment with the new UK government system. A decision on moving away from PCR tests is still to be made, but the Welsh government has outlined its opposition to the change and is calling on the UK government to reverse its decision. Elnett Morgan, Minister for Health and Social Services, said about this, "We have regularly called for a careful approach to international travel to prevent coronavirus being re-imported into the UK, especially new and emerging variants which may not respond to the vaccines. The decision to move away from PCR tests from returning travelers on day 2 is concerning. This test, combined with genetic sequencing of all positive tests, is a vital part of our surveillance for coronavirus and protects our borders from the virus. We recognize the communication and enforcement challenges in having different testing requirements and continue to thoroughly examine the evidence for a Wales-only testing regime, but the strongest solution to protect public health is for the UK government to reinstate UK-wide testing." The Welsh government is also considering which countries to expand the vaccine certification recognition system to over the coming weeks. And now we come to new services. Disabled people will benefit from a groundbreaking new advocacy service which will support access to Scotland's social security services. The Scottish government has committed £20.4 million over the next 4 years to the provision of the new and free programme, which is unique in the UK. It will offer advocacy support to disabled people looking to access Scottish social security benefits. These include current and future disability benefits such as child disability payment, adult disability payment, and pension age disability payment. The service will be operational in the new year and is entirely independent of the Scottish Government and Social Security Scotland. It will be available in each NHS board area and will create up to 100 new jobs across the country. Social Security Minister Ben Macpherson said, "The service will provide advocacy to anyone who is disabled and requires support to communicate their needs when accessing Scotland's security service, or the social security services. This assistance will be person-centered and advocates will provide the most appropriate form of support to each individual based on their circumstances. This is a new and independent free service with no equivalent provided by DWP. It builds on our human rights-based approach and make social security more accessible to disabled people in Scotland, ensuring their voices are heard. Voiceability, a charity with 40 years experience delivering advocacy services, has been awarded the contract to provide the service. They will establish a new base and training centre in Glasgow and create up to 100 jobs over the coming 4 years. There will be at least one advocate in each NHS area at launch, with more jobs to be created as disability benefits are introduced. Voiceability CEO Jonathan Sanker said, "We are proud to launch this new independent advocacy service, and we look forward to establishing a base in Scotland and taking on the staff to deliver it. The advocacy we provide will support disabled people to make sure their voices are heard when it matters most, and that more people will get the support they're entitled to." And Brian Scott of the Glasgow Disability Alliance added, "Our members have highlighted the barriers that many disabled people face in accessing support to find out about the social security benefits they are entitled to and to apply for them. We welcome this free advocacy service, and it will ensure disabled people are more involved in the processes and decisions which affect them. In making social security more accessible to disabled people, it shows real evidence of a right-based approach to providing services. The service will provide free and independent advocacy support to disabled people looking to access Scottish social security benefits. These include a current and future disability benefits such as I said, child disability payment, adult disability payment, and pension age disability payment, as well as a range of devolved carer and low-income benefits. The scope of the service has been increased by updating the advocacy service standards by removing the restrictions to instructed advocacy. Subject to parliamentary approval, the updated standards will be published in November prior to the comprehensive service going live. Access to the service will be via direct contact to the service or via a referral from Social Security Scotland. Voiceability were appointed after a regulated procurement process. An accredited living wage employer, 75% of their recruited workforce will come from those who are long-term unemployed or economically inactive. The remaining 25% will be experienced employees who have worked within the health and social care field and understand advocacy. All qualifying employees will be enrolled on appropriate modern apprenticeships. A procurement exercise for a provider for the independent advocacy service commenced on April 2nd, 2019. The process reached the point of identifying a preferred bidder when it was cancelled due to the coronavirus pandemic, resulting in a delay in the rollout of disability benefits. As Scottish ministers were still required by the 2018 Act to provide an independent advocacy service, an interim service was put in place in order to meet any demand for advocacy. The interim service launched on June 30th in 2020 and will remain in place to meet any demand ahead of the comprehensive service launching early next year. Voiceability will enter a mobilization period which will last approximately 3 months. The comprehensive service will take over from the interim service after completion of the mobilization period. And from one service, we now quickly go to financial services. Britain's financial sector has called on the government to ease visa requirements on overseas staff who want to work up to 6 months in the country to maintain global competitiveness. So another visa request now. A global talent mobility report from the City UK, City of London Corporation and consultants EY on Thursday set out some ways to overcome practical challenges being faced by banks, fintech and insurers in hiring sufficient talent. A hybrid short-term business visa would allow staff to work in Britain for a short time without the red tape involved with full work visa requirements the report said. Without it, we will not be able to innovate in key growth areas like fintech or green finance, nor build out our international trading networks, said Miles Selig, CEO of the City UK. The report said that within UK-based financial services, 19.5% of workers are international, rising to 42% in fintech, one of the growth areas in finance targeted by the government. Since the introduction of Britain's new immigration system in January, financial and related professional services firms are seeing significant cost increases to securing the high-skilled talent they need to compete on the global stage, the report said. Worries about recruiting have become central for finance after Britain fully left the European Union last December, largely cutting off the city from the continent. Ending the free movement of EU workers in Britain is a central tenet of Brexit, and Britain has just reluctantly agreed temporary visas for 5,000 foreign truck drivers until Christmas, after gas pumps ran dry across the country. Britain's finance ministry has already said it would introduce a fast-track work visa in the fintech sector and is reviewing rules on intra-company staffing transfers. There continued to be support for a broader view to be taken in free trade agreements that could facilitate the assignment of employees for a short period, the report said. And now, of course, we also have to talk about supply chains. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson sought on Wednesday to quell public fears as panic buying left fuel pumps dry across major cities, saying the government was making preparations to ensure supply chains were ready for the run-up to Christmas. Johnson said the situation at petrol stations was improving, though in many regions hundreds of forecourts remained closed and motorists spent hours hunting for fuel or sat snarled in queues waiting to fill their tanks. We are now starting to see the situation improve. We are hearing from industry that supplies are coming back onto the forecourt in the normal way, and I would just really urge everybody to go about their business in the normal way, Johnson said in televised remarks. Johnson's comments were his first since the fuel supply problems began at the end of last week, when oil companies reported difficulty transporting petrol and diesel from refineries to filling stations. Opposition Labour leader Keir Starmer accused him and the government of lurching from crisis to crisis. There have been growing calls for doctors, nurses, and other essential workers to be given priority in filling their cars to keep hospitals and social care services running. But Johnson said it would be better if we stabilize it in the normal way. An air of chaos has gripped Britain, the world's fifth largest economy. In recent weeks, as a shortage of truck drivers strained supply chains and a spike in European wholesale natural gas prices tipped energy companies into bankruptcy. The post-Brexit dearth of truckers has been exacerbated by a halt to truck driving license testing during COVID lockdowns, as well as people leaving the haulage industry. It has sown chaos through supply chains, and it raised the specter of widespread shortages, price increases ahead of Christmas, and a prolonged rise in inflation. What we want to do is make sure that we all have the preparations necessary to get through until Christmas and beyond, not just in supplying the petrol stations, but all parts of our supply chain, Johnson said. To tackle the shortage of drivers, the government has been forced to bring in measures it had previously ruled out, such as issuing temporary visas to 5,000 foreign drivers. It has also put a limited number of military fuel truck drivers on standby to be deployed to deliver fuel if necessary. Hauliers, petrol stations and retailers say there are no quick fixes, as the shortfall of truck drivers, estimated at about 100,000, is so acute, and because transporting fuel demands additional training and licensing. Ministers want businesses to pay more and offer truckers better conditions, rather than count on cheap foreign labor. What I don't think people in this country want to do is fix all our problems with uncontrolled immigration again, Johnson said. And he said, we tried that for a long time, and in the end people could see it was leading to a low-wage, low-skill approach. Yeah, but those people had the licenses you need now. Industry groups said the worst of the fuel shortages seem to be in London, the southeast and other English cities. Fights have broken out at some forecourts as drivers jostled for fuel, and pictures on social media showed some people filling up old water bottles with fuel. I can't believe it, it's crazy, said David Skate, a 33-year-old delivery driver who drove for hours searching for fuel in London. They keep saying there is no shortage, but I suppose everyone is panicking now. Well, there is no shortage of fuel, but it can't get to the stations. The Petrol Retailers Association, the PRA, which represents independent fuel retailers who account for 65% of all the 8,380 UK forecourts, said there were signs the crisis was abating. We have conducted a survey of our members this morning, and only 37% of forecourts have reported being out of fuel today, said Gordon Balmer, executive director of the PRA, which had previously reported up to 90% of stations had problems. With regular restocks taking place, this percentage is likely to improve further over the next 24 hours, he said. Retailers, truck drivers and logistics companies have warned that prices for everything from energy to Christmas gifts will have to rise because of the shortage of truck drivers. The British Retail Consortium, the BRC, urged the government to broaden the size and scope of its temporary visa scheme. It will take many months before there are enough new British drivers to cover the shortfall, said Andrew Opie, Director of Food and Sustainability at the BRC. European drivers have also indicated they would not take up the visa offer, which only lasts until December 24th. Come here and goodbye on Christmas. Some Polish hauliers said the offer was laughable, and the German freight industry said drivers who left after Brexit would not go back. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.